G'day, it's Pete here and I'm back for another featured lesson, and today I wanted to talk about risk versus reward of when should we be bidding game, slam or grand slam. How good do these contracts actually need to be? So anyway, let's jump straight in and see a few hands, and I want you to think, should we have actually been in game, slam or grand slam? Anyway, this first one we get to 4 spades, and the opponent's lead the Jack of Hearts. So looking at this hand, so we're just ignoring the bidding on all of these, just the play. So if we look at this, we've got a heart loser, probably don't have a spade loser, and we've got 2 diamond losers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to win, I'm going to draw trumps, and I'm going to lead a diamond towards the king. If the ace is on side, then I can lose a diamond and trump my heart. So here we'll just go in with the ace of hearts and draw trumps. So we've gotten rid of all the trumps, and now we want to see if the ace of diamonds is on side, so we cross over to the north hand and lead a diamond. And this time, the ace of diamonds was with the east hand. And at this stage, I got a diamond to lose, but I can ruff my heart loser. So I can play king of hearts, and then ruff a heart. So the question is, we made 12 tricks. Did we want to be in slam? So we've got 12 tricks here. We made it, we bid game, but we made slam. Should we have been in slam? So let's just backtrack to the start of the hand so that you can see what it looks like, and try and work out, do you want to be in slam or not? Okay, so we get the Jack of Hearts lead, and here, we saw that we made slam, but is it worthwhile being in slam in the long run? So try and work that one out. We'll go into the next hand. So this one, we get to 7 no trumps, and the opponent's lead the Jack of Diamonds. Alright, so here what we have is we've got potentially 7 heart tricks if the Jack of Hearts comes down good. If it doesn't, then we've got 3 hearts, 3 clubs, maybe up to 5 clubs. So 5 clubs, 3 diamonds is 8, 3 hearts is 12, and a spade is 11. So we really need the heart suit to come in. So if the heart suit comes in, which we've got 8 hearts, we can either pick up hearts being 3-2, then all of our hearts are good, or if hearts are 4-1, we need a singleton Jack of Hearts. So here we win the King of Diamonds, and now just Ace of Hearts, and King of Hearts. And we see that they're 3-2, so we make our Grand Slam. But was this a good Grand Slam? Did we want to be there? Or should we have just stayed in small slam? So that's a tricky question, but we'll go through that one. So do you want to be in Grand Slam? We made it. Should we be there or not? So that's one next question. Then we'll move on to the final one of do we want to be in game or not? So this one we get to 2 hearts. Again, we wouldn't open 2 hearts, but just saying what the final contract is. And the opponent's lead spades. So here we've got 3 spade losers. We've got a diamond loser, but I can take a diamond finesse. And we've got a club loser, but I can take a club finesse. So ace of spades, king of spades, queen of spades, and now a heart. So we draw trumps. And they break 3-2. And at this stage we take a club finesse. That works. And then we take a diamond finesse. That worked as well. So we actually make 10 tricks. So did we want to be in game or not? So should we be bidding this game, or was 2 hearts enough? Were these lucky makes, or did we actually want to be in these contracts? So we made 10 tricks there. So what I'm going to do is go through how we can actually work this out. So the first thing is it depends on the scoring method of whether you're playing imps or if you're playing match points. So imps is usually the teams variety, where bidding games highly rewarded. Match points is the one where you're usually in a partnership and you get a percentage based on how you did, and over tricks really matter. So should we have bid game, should we have bid slam, should we have been in that grand slam? These are the questions that we want to actually answer. So how do we actually do that? So first of all, we look at the scoring, and then we work out what's our risk versus reward of them. So I'll look at the imps of this, and then I'll look at match points. So for imps, let's first look at whether we should be in game or not. So I've got this table just here, and what this does is it's got for not vol games, vulnerable games, slams, grand slams. So the vulnerability does affect it, so that's important to look at as well. And then what I've got here is we've got the number of tricks we've taken, and we presume that the contract's been played twice. Once where we make our contract, once where we go down. And then whether we bid game or didn't bid it, or bid the contract or didn't bid it, what score would we actually get? So for a not vol game, if we bid it and made 10 tricks, we'd get plus 420. Whereas if we don't bid it, we get minus 50. And then we compare that to the people that don't bid it. And then the first column of that is the imps that the people who bid it get, and the second column is the people who don't bid it get. So if we bid game when we're not vulnerable and we make it, we get plus 420 compared to their plus 170, and we win 6 imps. Whereas if we bid game and we don't make it, we only lose 5 imps. And this is really important. Our risk versus reward, our reward is better than not bidding it. So we want to strive to bid it. If we're vulnerable, it's even more than that. So if we're vulnerable and we bid and make game, we win 10 imps if our opponents don't. And if we go down, we only lose 6. So if we just imagine that we bid game, like we played 2 hands, one where game makes, one where it doesn't. And we bid game on both, and our opponents don't bid game on both. We're going to win 10 imps, and then we're going to lose 6. So we're going to have a net positive of 4 imps. So bidding vulnerable games is really good. So you want to be quite aggressive to them. Whereas if we look at slams, whether we're not vulnerable or we're vulnerable, it's completely break even. We're going to either win 11 or lose 11. So if we played it twice and we bid slam twice and our opponents didn't, it's completely break even. We win 11 and then we lose 11. Same if it's vulnerable. Now, looking at Grand Slam, these are a bit tricky. So what we've got here is we've compared it to if our opponents are in Slam. I'll talk a little bit more about later when we're comparing it to if our opponents aren't in Slam. But if we're looking at not vulnerable Grand Slams, if we bid Grand Slam and make it, we win 11 imps if our opponents don't do it. Whereas if we bid Grand Slam and go down, we lose 14 imps. So if we bid Grand Slam twice and our opponents just bid Small Slam twice, we're going to lose 3 imps in the long run. So what this means is bidding 50% Grand Slams is a bad idea. And vulnerable, we win 14 imps and lose 17 imps. So, sorry, we win 13 imps and lose 17. So this is the breakdown. What we've done is we've assumed that the contract gets played twice, once where it makes, once where it doesn't, and we look at the risk, like what's the reward of bidding it twice. So if we do that, we can see when the contract is rewarding to be aggressive to do it. So let's look at the percentages of how aggressively do we actually need to bid game, and how aggressively do we need to bid slams and grand slams. Now these are all for playing imps. So if we're not vulnerable, if the game is 45% or better, it's actually the break-even point of how good it is. So we should be bidding games even if they're below 50%. And if we look at vulnerable games, that drops to 38%. So we should be so aggressive to bidding games that we should be going down more often than we're actually making them. And the reward there is still, like, the reward's still there in the long run. So if a vulnerable game is 38% or better, we're going to get reward from bidding it and continually bidding it. If it's worse than that, then we don't want to be there. What about small slam? It's 50-50. So if a slam is on a finesse, it's fine to be there. Like, we don't get reward for bidding a slam on a finesse. But if it's any worse than a finesse, then we don't actually want to be there. Now, what people don't often think about is if a slam's on a finesse, it's usually a slam on a finesse and not a 5-0 break, or not a bad break somewhere else. That will lower it from 50%. So the break-even point of when you want to be bidding slams is 50% or better. And with grand slams, what you want to compare is if you're bidding grand slam and your opponents are definitely going to be in small slam, then it only needs to be 56% or better. But the tricky thing about grand slams is a lot of the time your opponents are only in game. They might have missed slam. And that's a really hard thing to judge. So if you're considering bidding grand slam and your opponents might have been in game, instead of the 56% barrier of wanting to bid and make a grand slam, where if the opponents are in small slam, that's how good it needs to be, is that if there's a chance that they're in game, or you think that they might just be in game, you want grand slam to be 86% or better if you're not vulnerable, and 84% or better if you're vulnerable. And this is something really hard to judge because you don't know what your opponents are going to be. Whether they're going to be in game, or if they're going to be in small slam, or even in grand slam. So you need like you just sort of need an estimate of how good you think your opponents are. If you think your opponents are quite good and they're very likely to be bidding the slam, then grand doesn't need to be that good. If there's a decent chance that a lot of people will be in just game, then you don't want to be risking bidding grand slam unless it's a exceptionally good grand slam. So really tricky to judge this one about how high you actually want to go. And that really depends on the depth of field, how good it is, but the percentage will be somewhere between like 56 and 86% for a not false grand, and somewhere between 56 and 84 for the vulnerable grand. But really it depends on judging your opponents, how likely they are to be in small slam. There's no perfect measure for this. But in summary, basically, games, you want to be very aggressive too. Like, you expect to be going down more often than you make if you want to be right on that risk versus reward barrier. And for slams, it's 50-50. If they're on a finesse, it doesn't matter if you bid them or don't, but lots of the time, if you know they're on a finesse, it's a finesse and not a bad break. And grand slams, you want to be quite conservative too, but it really depends on judging what sort of capabilities the field's actually in. So let's now look at how we can use this to our advantage. So what we want to look at is, when judging a contract, you want to look at how you needed suits to divide and how many finesses you needed to take. Finesses, usually 50-50. Some of them aren't. Sometimes you're taking a double finesse, which is about 74% or 75%. And sometimes you need both cards of the double finesse to be on side, which would be 25%. But the other thing to look at is suit division and how you needed a suit to divide. So just down below, I've got a table here. It's not something you need to memorize, but you want a vague idea of how things are breaking. So a 3-2 break is 68%. A 4-2 break is 49%. So this is just looking at how many cards are missing. Are we missing 2 cards, 3 cards, 4 cards, 5 cards, so on. And how likely they are to break. So let's now go through those hands that we did at the start. We'll bring them up and look at, do we actually want to be there or not? Okay, so this first one we were in 4 spades and we managed to make 12 tricks. So we got the Jack of Hearts lead, and let's go through and work out how good was this contract. So the chance of roughing the heart, so we can rough the heart, that is fine. We can get rid of that heart loser. The diamonds, we need the ace of diamonds to be on side. So we're taking a finesse here. So straight away that contract is 50%. Is there anything else we need? And yes, there is. Look at spades. We're missing 3 spades. So there is a chance that we're going to, that spades will break 3-0. If spades break 3-0, we have the spade loser. 22% of the time, if you look at that chart, spades will break 3-0. So if spades break 3-0, we are going down in this contract. So it's not only just on a finesse, but it's actually on a finesse once we know that spades don't break 3-0. So the chance of this slam is actually 39%, so we don't want to be in this slam. So you're very happy that you bid game, you made 12 tricks, well done, but you don't actually want to be in slam on this one. If you keep bidding slam on these combined cards, it is going to be a loser in the long run, because some portion of the time the spades will break 3-0, and that means that when if the finesse fails, we're down. If spades break 3-0, we're down. This is worse than a finesse, doesn't reach that break-even point, so we do not want to be in this slam. This next one was where we bid to 7 no trumps. And we got the Jack of Diamonds lead. So here, what we actually needed is we needed hearts to come good. We needed hearts to break 3-2, or there to be a singleton Jack of Hearts. There is a very slight extra chance, but we'll just call that negligible for now. So here, what we want to do is assume that that's what we need, and this comes in at 73-74%. So at that, it comes into that grey area where we need to judge how good we think our opponents are at bidding slam. How likely do we think most of the opponents will bid? So we're vulnerable, so at most it was 84% we wanted to have, and at least 56%. This is sort of in that grey area. It's not clear cut whether you want to be there. It depends on how good you think your field is at bidding slams. Now, I think when your partner opens this one club, your hand is very likely to be bidding slam. I don't think that many people will miss slam, so I think this is closer to the 56% margin, but there will be people that miss slam on this. So quite an awkward one, but judging, do you want to be there? I think so, but it depends on what sort of field that you're actually in, how likely you think people are to bid that. And the final one where we bid game, so we didn't bid game, so we're in 2 hearts, and the opponents lead the ace of spades. Here they take 3 spade tricks, and then we needed to take a club finesse, diamond finesse, and so forth. So here what we actually needed is both finesses to work. We needed a club finesse to work, and we needed a diamond finesse to work. So the chance of 1 finesse working is 50%. The chance of 2 finesses working halved again, so 25% of the time. Whereas for a not vulnerable game, we needed it up around 45%. So this is a game we don't want to be in. So this would be a bad game. We want to stay out of it. So again, we didn't want to bid this game. We didn't want to bid the slam because it was worse than 50%. And we maybe wanted to bid the grand slam, but it depends on the field. So just once again, here are the percentages of where you want to be, how good the contract needs to be. So the next question is, what if we're playing match points? So match points is pretty easy. It's 50% or better. 50% or better for game, 50% better for slam. Doesn't matter if it's not vulnerable or vulnerable. For grand slam, again, you now have to judge what proportion of the field would you be beating if you just bid small slam. So if you think everyone in the field is bidding small slam, then it's 50-50 to bid a grand slam. If you think you're there's some portion of the field just bidding small slam anyway, then again, like if they're not bidding small slam, sorry, if they're just staying in game, then that raises above 50%. So for match points, every decision that you make is to 50% or better. Like if you think it's better than 50%, you should be going for it. The Grand Slam, you have to judge what proportion of the field are we already beating by bidding small slam. So that's the tricky thing there. Hard to judge, no clear-cut answer, and you have to work out how should you be judging your field. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this lesson on risk versus reward of when should we actually be bidding game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.